All right. And we are live, everybody. Thank you for your patience, everyone, live and on YouTube. It's so nice to have you in today. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And this is our biggest week ever. If you are joining us this week, it is madcap crazy. We are continuing our Epic Space Month all October long with incredible people from NASA, the Canadian Space Agency, and more. Joe is hosting Secret Path Week with incredible Indigenous speakers from across Canada. And starting tomorrow, I am beginning our Ingenious Plus series featuring amazing Canadian innovators to inspire you guys. Now, for today's presentation, we've got a really super cool person. First of all, the only person ever featured on a skateboard in our little picture at the beginning of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So that's pretty fun in and of itself. But Sabrina Thompson is so much more. She is an aerospace engineer at NASA, which is one of the coolest job titles in the entire world. She gets to plot the trajectories of amazing rockets going in and around the Earth and to other worlds, which is super cool and one of the most complicated uses of math I can possibly think of. She's going for her PhD. She's an accomplished artist. She's an author. She has done it all. And really, no one we've had on this broadcast in several months has so blended the world of science and art so beautifully together. I am so excited to bring in Sabrina today to blow your minds. And we are going to highlight her great stuff and get ready for your questions at the end. So Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us today. Such a pleasure, and take us away.
Thank you. So can you guys see me?
Do you see we got you and your presentation both.
Cool. Because I can only see the presentation. So just stop me if you know you need to. But hi everyone. I'm Sabrina Thompson. I'm a NASA engineer by day, and I guess at night I run my own business called Launchpad, where I teach kids STEM concepts through art. I make art to get kids interested in STEM. So I'm just like a walking engineer, artist, scientist, if you will. So I'm going to present a presentation to you guys about how I became a rocket scientist. So let's just get into it. So I'm originally from Long Island, New York. I currently reside in Maryland. I work at the NASA Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. If you all are familiar, NASA has a bunch of different centers across the country. So I'm at the NASA Center on the East Coast. So this little town called Roosevelt is where I grew up and where I got my beginnings. So as a kid, I was a normal kid up until maybe, I say normal, right? The picture on my left, maybe your right, is a picture of me when I was graduating from preschool. And then by the time I got to high school, matter of fact, as a 7th grader, I played varsity basketball for the women's basketball team. And so I kind of went from this little girly girl who would play with my Barbies to like this basketball, I guess, phenom, if you will, as a 7th grader. So if I wasn't playing with Barbies or playing basketball, I was making art. And so these were all things that came natural to me. I would sit in my room for hours ever. And so some of these pictures are things I created up until maybe up until like undergrad. So maybe my freshman year in undergrad. I remember painting sneakers in undergrad. So after high school, I ended up going to SUNY Stony Brook, which is in New York, on a full academic scholarship. So I was good at math, I was good at science and all these subjects in high school, but I never knew what I could do with these subjects. I mean, I always just thought I would be this famous artist or, you know, this famous basketball player. And it wasn't until actually my art teacher in high school brought it to my attention that I should try engineering. But before then, I knew nothing about what an engineer did. So I just took her advice and, you know, I was a 12th grader. I had no clue what I wanted to do. And I was desperate. So I said, okay, I'll try this mechanical engineering. So I majored in mechanical engineering at SUNY Stony Brook. And I mean, it was difficult the first couple of years, I'm not going to lie. But I enjoyed the challenge of solving problems, right? You go into a problem, you have no idea how to approach the problem. And then at the end, you design some solution to some problem. So that was really, really an exciting experience for me as an undergrad. And so that basically took me through my whole career, my undergraduate career as a mechanical engineering student. So after I graduated from SUNY Stony Brook, I guess I just couldn't get enough of school. So I ended up going to Georgia Tech and pursuing a master's degree in aerospace engineering. And so this is when I started to find out like that this place called NASA existed. And I said, well, if it does exist, I mean, it seems like a cool place. So I did an internship after my first year of grad school at Georgia Tech. I was a part of the NASA Academy, which is like an internship, a summer internship at NASA. So I was at NASA Glenn, which is in Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah, in Cleveland, Ohio. And so it was there that I basically fell in love with NASA, and I knew like this is a place where I want to work. Okay, but I just keep going back to school. So I just finished up a master's degree. We'll get back to what happened after Georgia Tech. But I went back to school as a NASA employee, right? So NASA paid for me to go to school. And I just, like, as of August 2021, just finished up a master's in atmospheric physics. And I'll get into why I did all this. But so far I have 3 degrees, right? 2 in engineering and 1 in the sciences. Okay, so now I'm at NASA. And in the beginning, I started out basically designing orbits, and I still design orbits. All right, so here's a shot of one of the recent technologies that I developed. And I did this using a combination of these 3 degrees that I just mentioned, right? So as a mechanical engineer, aerospace engineer, I learned how to design orbits and trajectories for space missions. As an atmospheric physicist, now I'm learning about why I'm designing these orbits. What is the purpose, right? I can get you there, but why are we here? And so that actually combining the science and the engineering allowed me to kind of come up with this technology where I use swarms, or you can think of constellations of small satellites to do the job of what a big satellite would do or could do, but maybe not as efficiently. So if you think about using, multiple satellites that communicate with each other and take data, like from, let's say, if we're talking about climate change or we're looking at clouds or things like this nature, think about using satellites to look at clouds from different angles, as opposed to just looking at it from like a top-down kind of approach. So those are some of the things that I'm working on at NASA. And again, these 3 degrees that I have now allow me to look at it from the engineering side as well as from the science side. So I mentioned these small satellites, right? These could be as small as a Rubik's Cube, right? Or they can be as big as like a refrigerator that you'd have in your house. But I'm talking really small satellites. Okay, so that's the NASA side. But what happened to the artists, right? Because the artist in me never died. So as an artist, I go by the artist name of Nefertiti Pocahontas. And for me, it's like an alter ego, So I'll just show you some of the work that I'm doing as an artist. So what I found was, as an engineering student going through all my studies, I kind of put the paintbrush down after a while because it was hard to kind of balance the engineering and the art. But once I started working at NASA, I work a 9 to 5, and then the rest of the day I have time to make art. So that's what I started to do. So this image here that you see is the first image that I actually created, as an adult working at NASA, and I posted it on Instagram, and people loved it. So I thought it was just me that just was into astronauts and all this stuff, but and this was years ago. So I just keep making art that kind of shows girls with astronaut helmets, and just kind of like put the thought out there about just kind of exploring space, no matter what you look like. It's for everybody. And yeah, these are just some other images. And I use different mediums, as you can see, like this medium here. This is just marker. And then recently, as of last year, I started a book series called Girl in Space. It's actually available on Amazon. But it's pretty much based on my story, but, well, it has elements of my story. Let me just say that. But it's a science fiction kind of book. So it's based in like another time on a different planet. But all in all, this book kind of is a story about how someone who doesn't have the traditional background in STEM could actually become a STEM professional and succeed at what they do. And then on top of that, I developed a program called Stimulating Art, where I teach kids STEM concepts through art projects. So at the moment, I actually have a few beta testers testing my platform, my virtual platform, which is membership based. But for the most part, this program is for kids who might be a little bit more on the artsy side, and it's for the kid who might be more on the techie side. So it just kind of combines those two worlds of art and STEM and teaches kids how to innovate for the most part. You take a problem and you come up with a solution, but you have fun doing it and you display your solution as a work of art. And so at the moment right now, we're developing the program, like I said, and I have this whole 10 for 10 campaign going on. And so, we're raising funds to be able to develop more of the projects for the Stimulating Art program. And that's it. That's me in a nutshell. I am STEM and I am art. And so for me, I can't have one without the other. So when you think about people who use both sides of the brain, I think sometimes it could be a bit challenging, but also very interesting because we come up with the weirdest solutions. But anyway, that's it.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. What a cool presentation. So unique. And I love the backdrop art. It's fantastic. I saw at the beginning you made this in Canva, which is like one of the coolest tools that every student should use if you're learning how to become an artist and play with things. It's a great thing. We use it all the time here too. If you want to come out of screen share so you can see us again, have a bit of a conversation, go right ahead and do that. And what I'll do is just welcome in all our YouTube viewers. If you guys want to share questions in the chat bar, we'd love to take them as well. But we do have 5 full classes with us from all across North America today live. And so Mr. Shattuck's class joining us in Chalk River, Ontario. If you want to kick us off with a question for Sabrina, come on in. Hey, guys.
What is your favorite part of the job?
Favorite part of the job, our classic question. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So my favorite part of the job is that I can never get bored at work. There's always a new problem to solve. So one day I'm working on an earth science mission. The next day I'm working on a mission to Titan or some other planet. Another day I'm working on developing technologies. So the diversity and the types of projects I get to work on is like the most the best part of my job.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And I mean, one of the things you mentioned at the top of your broadcast was how much schooling it took to get where you are. And I always like to feature to kids, it sounds daunting. You're in grade 6 to think you finished grade 12 and then 1 degree and maybe 2 more degrees after that. But you end up amazingly young and getting to do incredible jobs with people all over the world, having diverse days all the time and doing some really, really cool stuff. And I think that's a really important message. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let's head to Miss Stevens' class right up the road from me here in Hamilton, Ontario. Welcome in grade 6s and come on up. Hi. Yeah, you're good.
Have you ever sold your art?
Have you ever sold your art?
Yes. I actually have a website. It's nefertitipocahontas.com. Yeah, there you go, where I sell my art. So I do a lot of things where I do talks, and then sometimes I give away some of my posters, some of my arts. So yeah.
I was checking out the site while we were waiting for you to come on today, and some pretty cool stuff. I know you shared some of it, but I encourage all our classes to check that out, and I'll link it into the YouTube viewers as well, so you guys can take a look. Very cool, guys. All right, Mrs. H is 2 3s today. Welcome in Stratford. Oh, I love Stratford, one of my favorite places in the world. Hi, guys.
Hi, this is Sophie. She has a question for Sabrina.
Would you like to go to outer space?
Yes, that would be so awesome. So I did apply. So NASA has, I think it's every 4 years or so, they have a call for astronauts. And I know you probably have heard there have been non-NASA folks going to space recently, but as a NASA astronaut, you actually go to space to work, right? You go to space to have fun, but you have a mission, you have a job. And so I applied the last time there was a call for astronauts. And I guess because of COVID, they are a little behind in their selection process, but fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We talk about this a lot with a lot of folks. It's a question they get in pretty much every space program. What I'd encourage our classes to do, actually, we've had a potential Canadian astronaut, a guy who came to the top 8. So Dr. Adam Sirik highlighted what the process is if you want to become an astronaut and how incredibly intense and amazing it is. I really encourage our classes to check out his program. Super neat. And I'm so glad, Sabrina, you mentioned something which is really important. We are in this new age of space tourism and civilian astronauts, and it's very exciting, and it's going to open up a lot of doors for a lot of people to go to space. But it is fundamentally different from what you do if you are a trained NASA astronaut. It's like night and day. William Shatner went up, and that is super cool, but went up for a number of minutes, maybe into the low hours, came back down to Earth. If you're a NASA astronaut, you were trained for years, and you are one of the people on this planet that are the most mentally and physically prepared for one of the most dangerous situations that people can find themselves in. So it's a very different thing. And they're both cool in their own way, but NASA astronauts are the coolest. Let's head to Mr. Olson's class, our lone American group today. Welcome in Rochester, Minnesota, and come on up. Hey, guys.
Hello, Sabrina. Thank you for joining us. Lots of questions from my students about your artwork. They absolutely love it. And the question specifically from Ariana was, how long does it take to finish one of your art pieces?
Okay, so that's a good question. So I don't typically finish. Okay, so it's very rare that I finish an art piece in one sitting. I'm trying to work on that. But for the most part, I just get inspired by things. And so I'll start working on a painting today, but I already had an idea in my mind. So I spend time at least trying to figure out what I want to paint or draw. And then when I'm actually like in the process of painting or drawing it, I think about the colors, right? The color scheme. So sometimes I become too much of an engineer and trying to plan this stuff out that it takes a while for me to finish a piece of work. So I'd say that first piece that I displayed in the presentation with the profile of the astronaut with locks, I did that in about 30 minutes, most of it. And then I finished it off the next day. Maybe I put a few hours more into it.
Yeah.
So that one was the fastest I've ever.
I was going to say that's incredibly fast. Like that's not Artists take a long time. Very cool question. I love the focus on art in our YouTube questions too. So we just got one come in as a nice follow-up to that. Is there a favorite art piece you created, whether meaningful to you or particularly beautiful or anything?
The first one.
Okay.
And I sold it, unfortunately.
Do you have prints for it, or
I do.
mean, yes, so that's nice. But well, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things that, like, I guess you create a beautiful art piece that's your favorite piece, and it's really satisfying to sell it because then it's like, wow, this first piece there's so much value for it. But also, I don't know. Would you recreate it for yourself, or is a print like good enough?
I think a print is okay because I was able to get it professionally photographed so that it could look like the original.
That's nice.
So I mean, I kind of had a plan in mind, and I know the guy who I sold it to. So.
Perfect. You can go check it out anytime. You can be a museum goer for your own art, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
That's fun, Sabrina. All right, Sabrina, do you have time for another round of questions? Yes, with all our classes? Lovely. Yeah. Well, let's head back to Chalk River. Come on up, guys, and take us away.
Hi.
Hey.
What inspired you to combine both of your jobs, art and NASA?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, so it was what inspired you to combine your jobs. I mean, we've had people on before where they do one job and their art is very, very separate, but you really blended them together. Is there a reason that led you to do that? Or specifically, I know you talked about it a bit in your talk, but dive deeper.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I was always an artist. So art came natural to me. I was always thinking in pictures, right? So I would be at work and we talk numbers and we look at data sheets and we had all these numbers, and I don't learn that way. I need a visual. So I would take the numbers and draw a picture. And so for me, I'm a visual learner. So to have the work that I do not involve pictures, I can't relate anything. I would not be able to relate the math, the science aspect. I need to see. I need a visual, and I'm lucky enough that I could create those visuals. So I don't know how to do one without the other, if that makes any sense.
No, I think that's a really, really interesting thing. I think, when people come into programs with NASA engineers, you assume that, you had to be straight A student the whole way and everything, math was so easy to you and you didn't have any problems with it. I mean, I didn't feel that way. We've had tons of people on this broadcast that didn't feel that way, but so many people are visual learners. My fiance is a visual learner. That's how she goes about, viewing the world. And I think it's such a magical thing that we can blend these two, and that there's an increased emphasis on art and science and art and engineering in such a nice way. I was highlighting before the broadcast for our folks at home, Visions of the Future, this beautiful series from NASA, travel posters for going to Mars and Mercury and Venus. I mean, this is my favorite thing I've ever seen thinking about the solar system. It made me want to learn more about it just because the visuals was my conduit into that. So I love that you mentioned that. Thank you. Yes. All right, Miss Stevens, coming back to you guys. Take us away.
Yep, here comes Shane with the question.
How long did it take you to get your 3 degrees?
Oh boy. So good question. So I had a scholarship for my first time I went to college to get my undergraduate degree. So I had to finish in 4 years if I didn't want to pay for school. So Georgia Tech, I had a fellowship. So that's another way to pay for school. I worked as a research assistant, and that took me 2 years. And then after that, I worked for NASA for a number of years before I went back to school at UMBC. And this took me 4 years, and it took so long because I was also working full-time as a NASA engineer before, as I was completing the coursework. But if I was a full-time student, it probably would have took only 2 years.
So why was it so important to you, since you had this amazing full-time job already, to do more school? I think it's a question I think we might get from some of our students, so I'll preempt it.
Yeah. So, I was always one of those folks who got bored after a while with doing the same thing over and over. And that's why I say one thing about working at NASA, which is the best part, is you when you find yourself getting bored, there's always something else to do. And for me, when I looked at, my career path, I thought about what's next, what comes after, I get really good at designing orbits. You always have, some people, they design orbits for their entire career. And I knew that wouldn't be me. I would have to tie in another element to it. And I became curious about why I was designing these orbits. And so for me, that kind of pushed me over to the science side. And as I learned more about what it meant to be a scientist, I said, okay, I don't know, I want to be switch over completely to being a scientist. I still want to be an engineer. And so at a place like NASA, you can do that.
What a beautiful answer. I love the idea of lifelong learning, whether you end up doing it in the formal way and master's degree, PhD, what have you, or it's something that you just keep up with your whole life as an adult, continuing education, just reading a lot of books, finding resources. One of the benefits of things like the internet is that we now have access to all the information in the world ever at our fingertips. It's really amazing. And if you really dive in with that in a systematic way, you can learn about a lot of things, and it can really make your life a much richer in general. So thank you for that, Sabrina. Let's dive in with our last few questions. Time flies and you're having fun, folks. So Miss H's class, Mr. Olson, and we'll take one from our grade 6s in the backdrop to wrap us up. So Miss H, come on up, guys. Hi.
Hi, this is Keaton, and she has a question.
Perfect.
How many years have you been in NASA?
Good question. So I started NASA in January of 2010. So I've been there for 11 years.
Yeah. When did you get the awesome NASA outfit? I've always wanted to know this. Every time we have a NASA person, they got the coolest uniforms ever. So does that happen at the 5-year mark? They just ship it to you, or is
no? This is something that I bought and outfitted from NASA Kennedy Space Center.
Okay, everybody can go. There you go. You're going to look as cool as Sabrina. Awesome. Mr. Olson, come on up in Minnesota and take us away.
I have a question from Raina here. She's asking, is there a problem that you're working on right now that you're particularly passionate about?
Mm-hmm. So, let's just take it to work and then outside of work. So at work, we're looking at having the small satellites that I mentioned be able to talk to each other and to move relative to each other autonomously. So we're talking about using machine learning and AI with satellites so that we could be quicker at reacting to some of the phenomena that happens on the surface. Let's say if we take Earth, for instance. So with climate change, you could think about how fast clouds form, how fast they move, how fast they dissipate. How do you capture all of that? And, it's a matter of what type of orbit you're in. It's a matter of how many satellites you have with instruments that could look at this information. But the clouds tell us so much about the climate, and we need new ways of observing clouds and oceans, of course, to be able to answer some of these questions related to climate change. And then outside of work, the Stimulating Art program, developing more projects for kids to engage in. That's my baby right there.
I love that you mentioned one from both aspects of your life. How very, very cool. Again, I said at the top of this broadcast, there's no one we've had on this entire year that so blends science and art in such a nice way. And I think the questions that we've gotten from our students today really reflect that. So thank you so much for all these great answers. Sabrina, one more question we've got, so it sort of ties into this problem thing. Is there a most interesting problem you've ever been faced with that you've solved? What was the most interesting problem that you've ever solved in either art or science or both?
Okay. So at work, let's see. So originally when I arrived at NASA from Georgia Tech, my education was more of systems engineering than it was for someone who would design orbits. So I had to learn how to design orbits once I arrived at NASA. And I remember being on a mission called MMS, magnetospheric multiscale mission. You can Google that, but it was a complicated mission where it involved 4 different spacecraft, and they had to move relative to each other, but there was no AI or anything related, and these are huge spacecraft. And I didn't know how to code that well. So I had to learn how to code. I had to learn what we call orbital mechanics to learn how to design, and assess different orbits. I had to do all of that within a short time frame. And I had to create the code to basically be able to assess how good, the geometry between the 4 spacecraft were. And when I finally figured that thing out, oh my gosh, that was cause of celebration.
I would say so. Geez, no pressure. Nothing like teaching yourself orbital mechanics to solve a problem. Very cool. This has been so much fun. Again, we're near the end of the broadcast. I know some of our folks have to go to lunch today. So, Sabrina, is there a last message? I mean, you've every line you've shared in this whole presentation sort of is a fulfilling call to action for our students today. But is there a last message you want to leave kids with to inspire them to become like you? Because you're pretty awesome.
Well, I would definitely inspire kids to be better than me. But one thing, at least that I've learned in life in general, is that, you don't let people tell you what you can and can't do. I had a vision of being something big in life, and I still don't really know what that means. But I use my gifts and skills to have fun in life, but to also learn. And so I would say, don't stop learning, no matter how old you are. And don't stop dreaming. Again, no matter how young or old you are, anything is possible.
Sabrina, that is such a beautiful message. Thank you so much for joining us. You already highlighted this, but I want to bring up your beautiful site with amazing art. If you want to check it out, buy it, all sorts of good stuff. nefertitipocahontas.com. And what we do at the end of every broadcast, I'm going to bring in all our teachers in live groups. So Mr. Shattuck, Miss Stevens, Miss H, and Mr. Olson, if you want to join me in saying a big thank you to Sabrina for joining us today. You are all in the broadcast. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you so much.